Stars in the sky. The stars are tonight. We might be near the end, deep in the night.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to learn redstone.
Redstone video is going to be a bit of an interesting one because we're going to be taking a look at all of the redstone components in Minecraft, and I'm going to be trying my best to explain every single one of them fully so that you know what you're doing when you're building redstone circuits. The first component is the redstone block. This is a movable power source which activates adjacent redstone components to a signal strength of 15, but it does not power adjacent blocks. The redstone torch is another power source which outputs at a signal strength of 15, but it can be deactivated by powering the block that it's placed on. It also has 1 tick of delay. If you're not careful, you can actually cause a redstone torch to burn out by powering it and depowering it too quickly. The redstone torch will strongly power the block above it, which means that we can take a redstone signal strength from it, but it will also activate all adjacent redstone components, including above and below. The only block that the redstone torch won't interact with is the block that it's placed on. Redstone dust essentially carries redstone signals, and as it does this, it gradually loses signal strength. So for example, this redstone dust is being powered at signal strength 15 from this lever. Then as it travels 1 block, it goes down to 14, 13, 12 and so on and so forth until eventually it runs out of power. Nothing is being powered by this. Redstone dust, when placed as a dot, will weakly power all of the blocks on the side of it, and it will also weakly power the block that it's placed on. Now what I mean by weak powering is that you can take a redstone repeater output from the block, or for example you can activate a redstone component from it, but you can't activate redstone dust from it. When you strongly power a redstone block, like this, then that means that you can take a redstone dust output. Hopefully that clears that up. Redstone dust, when placed as a line, will weakly power all of the blocks underneath it, and also weakly power any blocks that it runs directly into, which means it will also activate any redstone components that it directly runs into. It will not interact with any blocks or redstone components that are placed next to it or above it, unless those redstone components can actually take the redstone signal strength, for example, repeaters and comparators. You see, they connect up like this. You have no idea how long it took me to record that clip. Next up, we've got the redstone repeater. Now this can take outputs from strongly powered blocks, such as ones powered by levers, redstone torches, other repeaters. It can also take outputs from weakly powered blocks, such as ones powered by redstone dust, and of course it can take outputs from power sources. A repeater will strongly power the block or redstone component in front of it to a signal strength of 15, but it doesn't power anywhere else. Repeaters also have delay built into them. By default, it is a 1 redstone tick delay, but this can be changed by right clicking on it all the way up to 4 redstone ticks. Now if the input pulse is shorter than the delay shown on the repeater, then it will extend the pulse. So for example, we'll fire 1 tick pulse into here, and that pulse got extended to 4 redstone ticks. A repeater can also be locked by running another powered repeater into the side of it. When a repeater is locked, it will hold the same state that it had when it was originally locked, and it will only change state once it gets unlocked. Redstone comparators are complicated. There is a full video down in the description, but briefly, unlike the repeater, which always outputs a signal strength of 15, comparators will output the same signal strength that came in. For example, we've got a signal strength of 8 running into this comparator right here, and it's outputting a signal strength of 8. And this information is carried through multiple comparators. So you can see we've got a bunch of comparators here, we've got 8 running in, and we still have 8 running out. If the comparator is in normal mode, aka that little light isn't switched on, then it will stop giving an output if the signal strength running into the side is stronger than the signal strength running into the back. If the redstone comparator is in subtract mode, then it will subtract the signal strength that comes into the side from the signal strength that is coming into the back. For example, we've got a signal strength of 8 running into the back there, and we put in a signal strength of 7, which means we output. If the redstone comparator is in subtract mode, then it will subtract the signal strength that comes into through multiple comparators. So you can see we've got a bunch of comparators here, we've got 8 running in, and we still have 8 running out. If the comparator is in normal mode, aka that little light isn't switched on, then it will stop giving an output if the signal strength running into the side is stronger than the signal strength running into the back. If the redstone comparator is in subtract mode, then it will subtract the signal strength that comes into the side from the signal strength that is coming into the back. For example, we've got a signal strength of 8 running into the back there, and we put in a signal strength of 7, 7, which means we output a signal strength of 1. Comparators have 1 redstone tick of delay, and they will strongly power any block that they run into. Comparators also have the special ability to take redstone outputs from filled containers, and the redstone signal strength being outputted is proportional to the number of items on the inside of the container. I'd suggest checking out the wiki page to see which containers are compatible and also how many items need to be inside for the signal strength to change. They can of course also take redstone outputs from strongly and weakly powered blocks as well as power sources. I'm a little bit terrified because we've only done, what, 5 of the items so far? We still have quite a long way to go. So let's speed things up a little bit. The stone button strongly powers the block that it's placed on for 10 redstone ticks. It also powers all redstone components that are adjacent to it, above it or below it. The wooden button does exactly the same thing, but it gives a slightly longer pulse of 15 redstone ticks. The lever behaves in exactly the same way, but instead of giving a pulse, it gives a constant output, switched on or switched off. A stone pressure plate will strongly power the block underneath it to a signal strength of 15 when a mob or player stands on top of it. It will also activate any adjacent redstone components or any redstone components on top of it. When the mob or player stands off of the pressure plate, then it will deactivate 5 redstone ticks later. The wooden pressure plate works in exactly the same way, but unlike the stone pressure plate, it can detect items and other entities such as experience orbs. The gold pressure plate works in exactly the same way as the other pressure plates, but instead of giving a signal strength of 15, it will give a signal strength that corresponds to the number of entities on top of it. For example, currently there is 1 entity on there, and if I throw down another few, then you can see that the signal strength increases. And it can increase right the way up to a signal strength of 15. The iron weighted pressure plate works in exactly the same way, but instead of dealing with single entities, it deals in groups of 10. So for example, if we place 10 villages inside here, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're still in the first group, but as soon as we move into the next one, you'll see that the signal strength increases. Stop making noise, I'm trying to make a video here. A tripwire is created using 2 tripwire hooks and then connecting them up with string. Now the maximum size of a tripwire you can create is 40 blocks. A tripwire hook will strongly power the block that it's connected to when an entity interacts with the string, and it will also activate any redstone components that are directly next to the tripwire hook, including above and below. It will also give a pulse of 5 redstone ticks when the string is broken, unless the string is broken by a player with shears. The daylight sensor outputs a signal strength that is proportional to the daylight that it's receiving, and it activates all redstone components that are directly adjacent, including above and below, but it does not power any surrounding blocks. It can also be toggled into night mode so that it does exactly the same thing that it did in daylight during the night time. The lectern is a new one for Minecraft 1.14. I didn't really think of it as a redstone component, but it's in the redstone section, so I suppose we probably should cover it. And what it does is it gives a comparator output that is proportional to the amount of the book that has been read in the lectern. So for example, here we have a book with 15 pages. Right now we're on page 1, so it's giving a signal strength of 1. If we go through to page 7, then it will give a signal strength
way.
of 7. Next up, we've got the trap chest. Now this will output a signal strength of 1 constantly while the chest is open. Now this will strongly power the block underneath it, and it will power any adjacent redstone components and any redstone components on top as well. As you guys know, I absolutely love the Observer. It's an extremely interesting redstone component. It can detect block updates with its face, and it outputs them through this section right here. Now it outputs a signal strength of 15, and it strongly powers the block that it's facing into, and it does it in the form of a 1 tick pulse. To see what block updates this thing can detect, I would suggest checking out the Wikipedia page for the Observer, because there's far too many for me to mention. The really interesting thing about Observers is that they can be moved by pistons, unlike most redstone components. Now the cool thing is, coupled with its block update detecting abilities, as it gets moved, it will detect a block update, which means it will give an output. So we get a 1 tick pulse every single time this thing is moved by a piston, which is used in, most modern circuitry these days. Fence gates will open when powered, and they will stay open until they get unpowered. If you open the fence gate by hand, then power it, it will stay open until it gets unpowered, and then the fence gate will close. it can also be moved by pistons. Wooden trapdoors have exactly the same game mechanics. Iron trapdoors are identical as well, but they can't be opened by hand. These game mechanics are also mirrored in full-size doors. The only difference is you can't actually move these with pistons, which is a shame. The dropper will spit out an item from a random filled slot in its inventory when either powered directly or powered by an adjacent block. The dropper is also affected by quasi-connectivity. It is also a solid block, which means that if you power the dropper, it will also activate adjacent redstone components, for example, other droppers. The dispenser shares exactly the same game mechanics as the dropper, but it has the special ability to fire out certain items. For example, it will shoot out mob spawn eggs, it can also fire fire charges, and also it can fire arrows as well. There's a bunch of things that it can shoot out, and I'd suggest checking out the dispenser's Wikipedia page to see that. Once again, stop making loads of noise, I'm trying my best to make a video here. Next up, we have got a rather interesting one, and that is the regular piston. Now the piston will stay extended as it's powered, and it can be powered either by powering an adjacent block, or by powering it directly. The only place that it can't be powered from is from its face. Pistons are another redstone component that is affected by quasi-connectivity, so there are other powering options there, you just have to learn how to use them. It takes pistons 1 tick to extend and 0 ticks to retract. And yes, I know I used sticky pistons in that demonstration, but I mean I needed to make the demonstration somehow. Regular pistons can push, but cannot pull. Pistons can push up to 12 blocks in total, with pistons themselves being movable objects. Pistons are considered to be transparent by Minecraft Redstone, which means that they don't power adjacent blocks. So unlike the droppers, where we power them and all of them spit out items, when we power the center one here, you can see that only the center one extends. Sticky pistons have exactly the same game mechanics as regular pistons, but they can also retract their blocks as well as push them. Now if you put a 1 tick pulse through a sticky piston, then it will spit out its block without retracting it. The redstone lamp can be activated by being powered directly or by being activated by a powered adjacent block. Now it turns on instantly, but it takes 2 redstone ticks to switch off, and it can also be moved by pistons. The redstone lamp is another solid redstone component, which means that if we power the center one, it switches on all of the adjacent ones as well. Now we have TNT. I think I'm going to move slightly further over here for this one. TNT activates instantly when powered either directly or by an adjacent powered block. Now its fuse time is 40 redstone ticks, but it can also be ignited by fire or other explosions. When TNT is set off in water, it will cause no block damage. As of Minecraft 1.14, a TNT explosion will cause all of the blocks that got destroyed to actually drop their items. This wasn't the case previously. And finally, if placing the TNT and then igniting it manually is too much for you, then you can also dispense prime TNT. The note block will play a note when it's activated by an adjacent redstone component or an adjacent power block. The only place that it can't be powered from is above, because then it can't play its note. Now you can change the note that comes out of it by right clicking on it, and you can change the tone of the note block by changing the block that it's placed on top of. And once again, as the note block is considered to be a solid block, when you power it, it will also power adjacent blocks, which means that you can create setups like this. The detector rail will strongly power the block underneath it to a signal strength of 15, and will also power all adjacent redstone components, including the ones above and below it. It surprisingly can be moved by pistons. The detector rail activates instantly as the minecart travels over the top of it, and it gives a pulse length in groups of 10 redstone ticks. So for example, if it takes 4 redstone ticks for our minecart to travel over the top of the detector rail, then it will give a pulse length of 10 redstone ticks. But if it takes 14 redstone ticks for our minecart to travel over the detector rail, then the pulse length will be 20 redstone ticks. I actually didn't know this before I started making this video, so that's very interesting to me. If a minecart chest is on top of a detector rail, then you can use a comparator running out the side of the detector rail to take a redstone signal strength from the chest itself. The redstone signal strength being outputted will be proportional to the number of items that are on the inside of the minecart chest. An activator rail can be activated either through direct powering or through adjacent blocks, and it can do a number of things. It can eject mobs from minecarts, it can repeatedly activate command block minecarts, it can also disable hopper minecarts so they don't pick items anymore, and it can also prime TNT minecarts. Powered rails can be powered either through direct powering or through adjacent blocks, and the power travels 8 blocks from the original source, which means that you can power 17 total powered rails using one powered source, by having it in the center and then having 8 blocks being powered on either side. Now, active rails speed up the minecarts on top of them up to their maximum speed of 8 blocks per second when they're activated, and when they're deactivated, they will actually decelerate the minecart. Slime blocks stick to all adjacent blocks that are movable and also not glazed terracotta. Immovable objects slide right past, and so do glazed terracotta, even though glazed terracotta are technically movable blocks. Now, the push limit still persists as 12, so that's a little bit limiting, and also if any of the blocks in the structure come into contact with a movable object, even if they're not slime blocks, it will stop the entire structure from moving. So it really is a challenge to make large scale slime block based machines. And finally we reach the end where we have command blocks, and I mean, they're magic, to be honest with you. I don't even know if I can explain. Yeah, you know what, I think I'm gonna leave that to someone else. I do hope that you've enjoyed this redstone video. It's been a lot of fun to make. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button, and if you loved it, then make sure to subscribe. But thanks for watching, guys.
Okay, so I have things to try, basically. I am okay. Had some ice cream. Doing pretty good. It was called Banana Split, and it was banana flavored ice cream, and it had a bunch of like goodies in it. Oh my god, it was so good. And then I put bananas on top of it. Okay. Sorry if you hear my washing machine. It's super loud. Holy shit, slimes. Okay. So I don't understand redstone, but I want to understand redstone because I want to make a thing. Yes. No. does it not stick? I don't understand. Interesting. Well, I mean, I guess 2 would be fine. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm not the car one. those burritos like every fucking day. Okay. I don't have any water in here. I mean, I guess I can go get some. I need to go put my clothes in the dryer anyways. Iggy. Should we make a McDonald's or a KFC or something? Welcome back, Linda. No, here comes asshole. He's trying to come in. Oh yeah, it's raining. I don't know what we're doing at this point, but whatever he says. the other way now that I think about it. Fuck it, it's going like that. I don't give a shit. chickens. Leave me alone.
It's just a phase, Mom.
How are you, Joe? That's good. bloom. And okay, let's try to figure out how the fuck we do this. That's kind of okay. It doesn't look right though, so hold on. See if I can convince Sam from my fucking
Oh fuck, I have to go to bed. I'll finish it tomorrow. Chat, I have to go. Have a good night. I'll be back next week at some point. Bye. I know. I know. You will. I hope. No, it won't be tomorrow, unfortunately. I wish. Okay, bye.